Hello and welcome. Today I want to address a couple of things. Not address, but share a few things. I want to talk about a favorite writer of mine, Kgebetli Moele, who wrote books such as Room 203, Unwritten, and my personal favorite, The Book of the Dead. And of course, I want to talk about relationships. The reason I want to talk about these two things is how they intertwine and relate to the story that I want to share today. Which, in my mind, I'm still thinking about the title, but in my mind, the title is called The Greatest Cheating Saga. Ooh. Greatest cheating saga that I experienced. Anyway, but first, let's talk about Kgebetli Moele. Of course, I know him as a writer, and I know him to have written these books that I love. What I remember mostly, which is what I want to talk about, is when he was having an interview in Grahamstown, which is like the National Arts Festival, known now as the Makanda Festival in South Africa. Because most of his stories are always based on the events and actions that he's seen or witnessed, or stories that he gets around in his community. And what he shared on stage was that when he now goes into the community, because people know him as a writer now, they know that he does this. When he goes into the community and sits there and listen, people don't want to share stories anymore because they're always saying, hi, you're going to write stories about us in those books of yours. So people are always now running away in being around him because of this fact that he writes stories about them. It's an interesting thing. But the reason I like that is because, it shares a perspective. Him as a writer, you take stories that you hear, you take stories that you are part of or witness of, and then you turn them into something that everybody can enjoy and relate to. Who is responsible actually for telling our stories? If no one takes initiative in actually telling our stories, then who is going to be responsible in telling those stories? In fact, the person who tells stories, are you allowed to tell other people's stories depending on how much of a witness you are? All these stories that I'm sharing with you guys and with myself, I was a part of those stories as a witness and sometimes as a participant of the story. But how much of that story can I share in my own perspective that makes it real? Because, truth be told, everything I'm sharing is a perspective of how I saw events happen. Because I was there, I was part of the events. But anybody else who might have been in the event as well had a totally different perspective. Because that's technically what stories are. We always have different perspectives. I think I remember when I was in a lecture, a script writing lecture actually, how the lecturer said that everybody has a different interpretation of the same event. And he made an example of someone getting murdered in an apartment building, and different people around the complex were seeing this event or action happening, but at the end of the day, how everybody had a different perspective on how they saw the murder. Who murdered who did what, and who did what, and exactly who was the murder. So we all have different perspective of the same event. Which, again, the reason I'm sharing this is because it's going to come back to the story that I want to share today. Relationships. Who is supposed to teach us about relationships when we are young and growing up to the people that we are going to be in the future? Of course, in a matter of psychology, or social cultural psychology perspective, it says the people we are supposed to learn about relationships from are the people in our surroundings, especially our parents, our mothers or fathers or aunties or uncles. All those people around are supposed to teach us how to act and interact in relationships. But what if those people don't necessarily have great relationships, either with themselves or their partners or the people around them. So then how are we supposed to learn what a relationship is supposed to be like from those people? I mean, if I can reflect on myself, I think you take what works. You see what doesn't work, you discard it, and whatever you feel like works in the relationship that you envision or that you want, then you make it work. I mean, I've had great and I've had terrible relationships. Some of them started well and end up bad. Some of them start bad and end up well. So you never know what exactly could happen. But along the way, especially in the relationship, you learn. You learn how to interact with your partner. You learn how to basically navigate with who you are in the relationship and who your partner is in the relationship. And you find the bridge and you make it work. At least that's my perspective. Anybody else out there can have a different perspective in terms of how exactly do relationships work. Now, the reason I'm actually bringing this up, as I said earlier on, is leading up to a story that I want to share in terms of how relationships work. Now, having grown up around a single parent who is my mother, in my perspective, there were not great times where she showed her ability to maintain certain relations. Great neighbor, at least that's what I think. My mom's a great neighbor, interacts with everyone. But in terms of her own personal relationships, there were moments where I felt like, they were not so great. And then, of course, watching that, you tend to learn things, and then you take things that you can use as a person later on in your life, and then things you are going to discard. Now, what happened on this particular day is something of a little bit extraordinary. But again, perspective from what I saw. Later on, I did ask my mom exactly what was happening in her life for her to have done that, and for those events to have happened in her life, especially relationship-wise. It had been, I don't know. I think after my sister was born, my mom was in a relationship with my sister's dad. Great guy. Oh, I would like to call this basically episode the day I almost lost Jackie Chan. Because I'm gonna be honest, as a child, that was the first initial thought that came into my mind. As an adult, of course, now I'm seeing something different. But as a child, it was, oh shit, I'm about to lose the one thing that I love the most in the house. One thing that keeps me entertained and keeps me, just happy. Now, my sister's dad, lovely dude. He was a lovely dude. He was a guy who introduced me to Jackie Chan for the first time. I remember when he brought home the VCR. I didn't know what a VCR was at that time. But he brought it, came there carrying it, and then just put it there in the living room. And because as a child, when you see something exciting, you were excited as well. Came into the house, just sat down, kept quiet, and I was watching him work his magic. And then, plugs it on the TV. I don't know how, but we had a color TV earlier on in our lives. I think it was like 1999, if not early 2000s. But yeah, color TV on those days. It's amazing. Anyway, puts it on, and he puts a first movie. I think the first movie was what was the first movie? Shucks, I can't remember the name, but I know it was about brothers. It was about brothers and a guy with white hair. My God, that guy could whoop some ass. I think I'll probably put a picture in this video to show who I'm talking about. But my God, oh, no retreat, no surrender. That's the name of the movie. Oh my gosh. That was one of the best, earliest movies I would ever see in my life. No Retreat, No Surrender. Very old. It was good. It was good. But what came after was probably the most greatest day of my life until this day. Because it was then that he had Jackie Chan, the Drunken Master, in that collection. It was one of the best days I could ever imagine in my life. Like, I don't know what happened, but that's a story for another day where I can tell you about me and my relationship with Jackie Chan. Anyway, this is the context of this dude. Nice dude, lovely dude. He was, I think he was from Malawi, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, I guess in between, probably they did have problems in their relationship with my mom. You know, every relationship has its problem. But I guess in the end, I found out that the problem might have been bigger than what I, as a child, were seeing. You know, perspective. But somewhere after many years, there was an uncle that came into the scene. Well, uncle. At least that's what my mom would say. It's like, this is your uncle. Like, hey, all right, uncle. But very strange uncle, because the uncle would go inside the house and go inside the bedroom. Guys, we're all adults here, and you know what I'm talking about. The problem is, I feel like as a child, I knew what was going on. You know, I don't know how my mom never saw that I was much more mature for my age than I was actually when I was younger. I was pretty mature for my age. I had an understanding of what the world is working like. I think it's because I was exposed to so many things in terms of going to the library, in terms of watching television, and just listening to radio. So all those things combined together, information, made me become more aware about what the world is working like. I knew that this guy was not an uncle. Clearly, I mean, uncle that goes into the bedroom for long hours. Mom, please, come on. Who? You know? Anyway, you know, this relationship kept going on for quite a while. I mean, the reason is my stepdad would disappear for quite a long time. I think he had work, or he had another household, which is, you know, this is what comes in later. But he had a secret place or a secret family that he had that nobody knew about. It came out later though. So he would disappear for work purposes and then come back now and then. Now, now, on this particular day, I'm not sure. I mean, in my understanding, I think he was aware that something was going on, that his woman was cheating, because it can't be a coincidence of basically what happened on this particular day. But on this particular day, I was busy playing at the backyard of my house, you know, just playing, you know, bricks, playing cars. I think as well, I remember it was quite a cold day. It was a cold season at that time, because I even remember what my stepdad was wearing when he came back. He was wearing a very big black jacket. But it was a cold day. A very good day for uncle to visit. You know what I mean? You know. But whenever uncle comes into the house, we were always told to go play outside. Even on this particular cold day, we were told to go play outside. You know, my mom makes tea and stuff, and we were outside and play. You know, Dad had left. I saw him leave. He was going to work. He left, said bye. I mean, stepdad, you know, but Dad left, and an hour or so later, a uncle comes, and then he comes into the house, and then of course, you know, we're told to go outside the house, and we are playing there. I don't know how long it was. It might have been 30 minutes or an hour, but Dad returned quicker than he was supposed to. You know what I mean? Like, it almost like he knew what was happening, and he was coming in back earlier than what he was supposed to, because he was supposed to come later in the day, like in the evening. But I'm there playing with my brick, and I don't know, when I turn around and see from afar, from my house, I see Dad coming back home. And I'm like, shit. Oh shit. But because you know me, I was aware of what was going on. I rushed to the window, the bedroom window. My mom should thank me for that. I was a hero that day. I was a hero. But I knock on the door, on the window. I'm like, Mom, Nangu Baba, here's Dad coming back from town. I can see him, Of course, I'm translating here of what I was saying, but I was telling Mom, hey, Nang Baba Ebuya. I was hearing panic in the bedroom. I'm sure probably they were like changing, going back. And then here's what makes this the greatest cheating saga that I ever witnessed. So, okay, what can I use to create this? But here's something that I can use to make an understanding of what exactly this is. So this is we're gonna say this is my house. My house, of course, house like this. You have the door right here in the front, and you have the road coming here, and a path coming here, but also you have a path coming here. So my dad is coming from this side. Instead of coming this way, he decides he wants to go around, and so he can come back into the house here. So now they had a beautiful plan, my mom and uncle. So the uncle was going to wait here or here, depending on where my dad was. Yo guys, don't cheat. Anyway, my dad decides he's gonna walk around this way so he can come down here. So what they decide to do, my uncle would come up and stop here. When he stops here, he would be looking. I'm watching all of this happen. Guys, I'm watching. I'm there in the sand just watching this. It's so beautiful because I had a beautiful view of everything that was happening. I'm sitting here in this corner watching everything. I can see my dad as he's gonna walk down. I can see this uncle as he's going to be walking up and running away. So my dad comes, and as he disappears from view of the corner of the house, the uncle, after having looked and see that he's disappeared, decides he's gonna just spring up and go into the road and just walk away. But I don't know, the gods were not on anybody's side that day. Neither on my mom's side, the uncle, or my stepdad's side. The man who had the greatest plan was, of course, my stepdad. He goes and disappears, aiming to come to the door, but instead of going to disappear, he stops by the corner and comes back. When he comes back, he sees this man running out of the corner from my house into the road. He's like, hey, you son of a bitch. And the uncle, instead of running away and just walking off, he stops. And who are you calling a son of a bitch? What are you saying? And the guys, my dad's like, I'm gonna fuck you up. He's like, fuck you up. So my dad starts taking off his beautiful jacket, just throws it down. And I see this uncle now also just taking off his thing, throwing it down. It's about to go down. Stepdad goes to him, and then they start doing, and they start fucking each other up. And of course, neither man wants to to let go. They're busy, they're messing each other up. The whole neighborhood ran towards and the people to try and come and help. My mom comes out the house running, screaming, Aibo, Aibo. Tries to pull both dudes off each other. I think in my view, when I was seeing, of course, my mom was more protective of uncle than he was with my stepdad. And then of course everybody came and then they separated the two men, and then the neighborhood was telling the guy who was an uncle to get the fuck out of here, because nobody knew who he was. Everybody knew who my stepdad was, because he's the father of the kids, and in the community knows him, but nobody knew who this guy was. So basically everybody was assuming this guy was the problem, and then they chased him off and then he walked away. But my dad was livid. Comes back to the house, takes his jacket, comes back to the house, and he starts packing his shit. And here's where the worry was for me. I'm like, shit, if this guy packs all his shit, he's definitely taking the VCR. And that's the best thing that is at my household for me, the VCR. And I see him. I think this is where in my perspective, I saw this guy as, he wasn't a bad dude. He was a good dude. But because I'm back into the house now, because I see everybody, he's packing, he's angry, he's yelling, and I see him packing his stuff, he's packing his clothes, he's packing his things. He goes by the VCR, and I'm seeing him unplugging it, and my face just goes blank. It's like I'm shocked. It's like I want to cry. I don't know what was happening in my mind. I think he looked at me and he saw me see what he's about to do, and he stops. And instead of taking the VCR, he just takes a couple of his cassettes. I'm not sure if he knew I liked Jackie Chan, but he left all the Jackie Chan, the Chuck Norris, all those ones. I think he left all the nice ones. I think he took all the porn ones. There was like porn there. I knew there was porn there. Anyway, he took all those cassettes and then he left. And that was the last time I ever saw of the guy. I think I bumped into him in town once, but that was the last time we ever had a relationship of son and stepdad. Because now in the later years or later months that came, I was now told, actually I wasn't told, but uncle wasn't uncle anymore. Or at least, the relationship got so strong or public that the idea was for us not to call him uncle anymore. He's supposed to be dad. But for the life of me, I couldn't find the words to call him dad, because I think of the experience of how the relationship for me in my perspective happened. It was impossible for me to call him dad. Rather, I would always refer to him as uncle. And I think that was always also driving this guy, psychologically was messing him up, where we were not referring to him as a father figure, as a dad, because he was introduced to us as uncle, and psychologically I don't think we could ever get rid of that idea that he was an uncle. But yeah, I think that's the whole idea or the whole share of the story. And then I asked my mom later on, of course. My mom runs away from me now, because when I got back from varsity, I had a lot of questions or a lot of things that I needed to ask my mom, because I was introduced to so many things like psychology, and it teaches you how to unpack situations and unpack past traumas. And I would ask her so many questions relating to all these events that used to happen. And I asked her about this relationship that he had with these father figures, and he would explain and break it down to me about what happened, why she did what she did, how the guy was also busy cheating on her, and then she actually found out that this man has a different family besides the family that he says he has here with us. And for her, it was basically a betrayal, and then she seems like she had to move on with her life in a certain way, which I told her, of course, it was a very fucked up way to move on. I mean, you could have found a way to break off the relationship in a different way, but you chose this way, which, in social standards, it's wrong. It's wrong to do it this way. But everybody experiences things differently. I can't judge. I can only view from my own perspective. But yeah, I've learned a lot from my mother. I've learned a lot of good things and bad things, good traits and bad traits, and all those things, they amalgamate into with each other. So I have to find which ones work for me and which ones I can discard, and grow up to who I want to be. Moral of the story: don't cheat. Don't be an uncle or an auntie. If you do this, how a relationship starts is a possibility as how it might end. I think that someone always said that. Find a way to have communication. Even when relationships end, find a way to end them in a mutual way where people can understand why things are ending. So, we can all be civil. Thank you for listening. I hope you can share your story as well, your cheating saga story. I am all ears, waiting to hear what you have to say.